What's going on is Anton from antondaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. I want to have a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation with you guys. Not from my lens, but it could be from your lens, depending on what you believe in and what you stand for. I know it's a lot of people that watch my channel that may not be Republican. There's a lot of people that are conservative, and then there's also some people that are liberal that may come for one thing, but then they hear me talk about some other things that are a part of my life or the things that's passionate about me, right? And one of the things that's happening in the culture is that there's a lot of protester. They got this Tesla takedown and all of this stuff. And so people, instead of going out there and getting to the bag and being successful, which is really a reflection of, their lack of motivation and them not believing in the American dream, which is very much still real, they're out here wasting their time. A lot of white people mostly wasting their time thinking that they're doing something by protesting Tesla. Now, what they don't understand is that Tesla is more of a technology company than they are a manufacturing company, but they also manufacture every single vehicle they assemble and manufacture here in the United States of America that they make, which means that they're more American than the American companies that are traditional automakers. The Ford, Chrysler, and GM. GM is number two with over 70% of all of their vehicles sold here, is manufactured here, but they employ a lot of people in all of this stuff, right? But before I really started to understand all of this stuff, years and years ago, I would say probably 8 years ago is when I started to really start to make the transition into being Republican. And I say Republican because the way that I lived my life and the way that a lot of people, including black people, well, maybe not so much today, but the way that a lot of black people live their lives today is conservative. We were raised with conservative values: smaller government, more money in our pockets, close off our borders, less taxes to the federal government. All of those things are conservative values, but we were raised to vote Democrat. Ain't that crazy? We were raised to vote Democrat, but we had conservative values and conservative views. And I believe personally that that is a spirit. I believe it is a spirit, and it is also an indoctrination that was also pressed upon us by the church. The black church is one of the biggest influences in black people's lives historically, in the way that we view things, the way that we vote, and the way that we are basically programmed to think a certain way. We're not programmed to think for ourselves in the church. We're programmed to think a certain way when it comes to a herd mentality, not having any thought for yourself and all of that. And I've always had my own thoughts, always had my own suspicions. I was always challenging things because it just didn't make sense. It didn't even make sense from a biblical perspective. You know what I'm saying? If you think about, all of the things that we are mandated to do, or all of the things that's of Christ, none of these conservative values, all the way up until, and it became more extreme, which is basically one of the things that unlocked a lot of us to say, you know what? We not even Democrat. Why are we voting for this demonic party? Right? It became more extreme. It became women in men's bathrooms, and I attribute that to the Obama administration. It became, gay marriage and all of this stuff. And listen, do whatever it is that you're going to do, because you're the one that's got to answer to God. However, I'm talking about my breakout, right? It's a lot of people that had to break out, and it's like you become the anomaly. You become the Neo within the Matrix, or you become one of the people that broke out, that became a part of Zion, that was basically under duress from the machines that were harvesting your bodies for energy. And that's basically what the Democrat Party is doing. They're harvesting our bodies and our votes and our energy and all of this stuff for the thing that's not best for us. It keeps you broke. It keeps you down in the dumpsters. And y'all are out here protesting, and y'all talking about identity politics and black people, when in reality, some of the people that's been in office, most of the people that has been in office in the Democrat Party, have led you astray. You think about the Brandon Johnsons, right? Which he replaced Lori Lightfoot, who did a horrible job. And Brandon Johnson is even worse for it. But you got black representation, but then he took y'all money, and he's doing the worst things for y'all communities. He removed ShotSpotter out of the communities. He made sure that he allocated resources and hundreds of millions, if not over $1 billion, over to illegal migrants. Right now, Chicago is out of control, and these young dudes is out here destroying and tearing up y'all city. And he is calling it large gatherings, the same thing that he did last year. And I have no doubt in my mind that y'all will either continue to vote people like him in, or, replace them with somebody that's even worse, which is usually the case. I see a lot of things that is happening in the party, but, Democrats didn't even used to be this extreme. They're even more extreme, and now black people and liberals are more extreme. They are really taking on the identity of the party in this democratic ways, which is, in my opinion, demonic as to how it is that we go about looking at things. And, from a young guy, from a very, very young guy, from a child, of course I was raised in a church, and it's not just the influence of the church, it's the culture, it's your neighborhoods, it's other black people around you, and they've always said that, Republicans are only for the rich and Democrats is for the poor. It was the biggest lie. The biggest lie. Have you noticed that nobody switches over from being Republican to Democrat, but as you get older and wiser, most people switch over from being Democrat to Republican? It's a reason for that. As you get older and wiser, unless you stay a fool, then you usually evolve and you start to have different values based off of your learned experiences, and you make the adjustment. Nobody gives a fuck on the Republican side about your lifestyle. Nobody cares about what you do in your bedroom. What they care about is if you start to input that on other people and you start to get out of your mind to where you think that it's okay for a man to participate in a woman's sport. If you think that we should pay more tax dollars and then you don't even want to do an audit to find out where all of the fraud, waste, and abuse is. When you're younger, the culture, it mandates it. In order for you to kind of exist, talk about systematic oppression. They will absolutely make you an outcast if you decide that you don't want to vote Democrat, or if you voice your opinion. You know what I'm saying? They'll call you a sellout, they call you a coon, they call you all kind of stuff. But, it's even worse when it happens in your own family and in your own household, in your own church and on your own neighborhood. And so, for a long time, it took me all the way up until I was in my 30s, to then look back. And now I look back at some of my old videos and I'm like, what the hell was I doing voting for Obama? Why was I even considering and voting for Hillary Clinton? It is the dumbest thing that I ever did in my entire life. One of the dumbest things that I've ever done in my entire life. But, you know what I'm saying? You become a part of it. You're a part of the indoctrination camp. And it ultimately is the thing that is the worst for you. And I thank God. One of the things that I thank God about is that I didn't influence my daughter in that way. By the time that my daughter started becoming of age and she started to understand life and politics and all of that stuff, from the very beginning, she always understood that we were conservative. She always understood our freedom. She always understood the sacrifices that people have made before us to give us the ability to do some of the things that we do. She always understood, our greatness as a people. She always understood the history of black people and people in this country and why it's important for us to maintain certain values. And I'm very thankful that I woke up before I started to put that generational trauma and that curse on my daughter. But breaking out was very hard at every turn. You were criticized. Whenever you asked questions, they would say you're rebellious. And it took a lot. It really took for me to abandon some of the values or kind of be an outcast completely before basically being accepted, because they realized that I wasn't wrong. But now I see it very difficult for other people that are a part of my culture and my family to break out. And it is better over here. It's better on this side. It's much more conducive for your lifestyle. It is better for your children. It is better for, we don't believe in the stuff that they're preaching and that they're putting out there, but yet we continue to remain it because basically a lot of black people are racist. They're racist. They're 100% racist. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to just come out and say, no, I hate white people or I hate American values because this is what I was taught. They never experienced any real racism in their life. All they know is the history and the things that was taught to them, which is basically keeping them from actually being open-minded. And the thing that we, went against, which was, removing segregation, wasn't that it didn't mean that you can't do what you want to do. It meant that you shouldn't discriminate against other people. And now we're segregating ourselves from ourselves because we think that that's going to somehow free you. And all we doing is putting ourselves further in shackles and in chains. But yeah, man, I used to be I'm not going to say raging liberal, but I fought it. I fought it for a long time, and it took for me to really start doing my own research and to have my own backbone before I actually put that shit on my family, on my immediate family that I have within my own household. But, you know, you too can break out. It is very difficult. I think that the older that people get, the more difficult it becomes for them to walk away from the thing that they've, you know what I'm saying, basically indoctrinated themselves to believe for the 30, 40, and 50 years before that. But you can do it. It's just very hard. That's why you got to kind of get to people younger. But the peer pressure and the culture's pressure and all of that stuff, it will definitely keep you in the Democratic Party longer than usual. But yep, I used to believe all of that nonsense, and I used to go with the flow against my will and against my instincts and against what God was telling me. And I'm just thankful that I broke out. But I'm curious as to what y'all think. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off of life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.